Right, I get it now. I never understood what all the fuss was about when it came to the GH cameras, and I want one. Lumix UK invited me to the launch event for the brand new GH6, so I got to hear about all the specs of this camera before it was actually released, which was exciting. Then they kindly sent one for me to try, along with the Leica 12 to 60mm lens. Now, when I first heard the specs in that launch event, I was absolutely blown away, and I thought this camera is going to be amazing. But I didn't think I'd like it that much because of the micro four thirds sensor. I'm used to full frame cameras, love the look of them. Obviously I've got two S5s now and all the lenses for them. Plus everybody is going towards the full frame these days anyway. And to be honest, when I went to Knott's to try this camera out for the first time, I didn't take to it straight away. It took me a while to get used to that sensor size and the focal ranges of the lens. And it did throw me off, to be honest. Anyway, I was sort of getting some examples with the GH6 and the S5, and when I switched to the S5, I quickly realised how much better the LCD screen is on the GH6. It's such a great image, a lot better colours, and it's not bad on the S5 anyway. I come from Canon cameras that have got a really nice display on the back. Other cameras that I've used, I won't name any names, aren't very pleasing to look at all. It's not very inspiring. The GH6 is a fantastic image. It's really nice to look back on. The colours are great, so it just motivates you and inspires you a little bit more to use the camera. And all I want to do is just keep filming with it. Anyway, what's really important to me about cameras is the image, and that's why I love this camera so much. Let me explain. So the GH series have been really popular, especially in the wedding scene, and most people would say it's because of the image stabilization in Panasonic cameras. But as someone who got into video making only a few years ago, I've relied heavily on autofocus, and that's why I like Canon so much. And we all know that the Lumix hasn't got the best autofocus, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But when you want more features in a camera, you naturally lean towards Sony because they've got loads of features in there, loads of slow-mo options and decent autofocus. But I was never happy with the picture and the colours coming from Sony cameras, even on the A7S III. And fast forward to now, the S5 is the best image I've ever got from a camera that I've used in this sort of hybrid camera range. And I didn't think I'd be able to get anything better than the S5 until using the GH6. This camera has the best colours I've ever used, ever. And that's why I want one. The skin tones are just so natural. Every look that I've used with this camera looks fantastic, and I'm so happy with the results. I mean, I can't stress enough how good this is and how much I've enjoyed using it, and I love looking back at the image. Sometimes you don't know how good an image is until you use it yourself. You can look at all these YouTube videos and you think, yeah, that looks nice. But until you start colour grading it yourself and comparing it to other cameras, you don't realise the difference and the quality. And this really is the best image I've ever used, or when it comes to colours, definitely. I did notice a little bit of noise in some situations. Obviously this is micro four thirds sensor, so it's not going to be as clean as the full frame cameras. But if it's lit properly and well exposed, you can't really complain. It's also got dynamic range boost, which I wasn't super excited about, if I'm honest, when I hear things like that. And people have been saying that they can't tell a difference. But I did a test, and you can tell a difference, but you can tell more when you start colour grading it. So what I did was I overexposed this image by 3 stops using Vlog, and then tried to bring the highlights back, but couldn't. And when I used the dynamic range boost, you can see that you can actually bring some of that detail back in the highlights. So the dynamic range boost does work. The only thing is, it bumps the ISO up to 2000. Now, my advice would be to just make sure your image is exposed in the first place and don't rely on the dynamic range boost all the time. But if you need it, then you've got it. Well, the main problem with this autofocus, or the S5 autofocus for example, is not so much moving around and tracking, but it's the backwards and forwards motions. Whereas this, I mean, so far on the screen it looks alright. the autofocus. It is stellar. That is what I want to see in the S5. It's still contrast based, I think. It's not dual pixel autofocus, not as good as the Canons, don't get me wrong, but it's a massive step up and it's completely usable, perfect for vlogging. It seems to track a lot better and also react a lot better because the tracking in the S5 is great. It just takes a little bit longer to actually focus on you. It looks really natural and it keeps up with you really well, even if you're moving back and forth. And if you're vlogging and moving at the same time, then the autofocus in this is absolutely perfect for that. Now, speaking of vlogging, the 12 to 60mm Leica lens that you can get as a kit lens isn't really wide enough for vlogging, but it's a great all-rounder. If you did want to do some vlogging with this camera, then I'd recommend going for a wider angle lens. And this is at 12mm for vlogging. See what it's like for vlogging. Danny boy's got, what is that, 50, 16?
That's 16 to me.
16, what can you see in yours?
Just like everything.
Yeah, you can see everything.
Everything and more.
No.
But then again, at 12mm.
I mean, it's not meant for vlogging, that's the thing.
Hold on, let's just compare. 20mm. See, that's a little bit more. No.
I reckon it's probably more, you know.
Oh my god, that's a 24. 28? I'd say it's more like a 28mm.
Mad. This is what the 20mm looks like on the full frame S5. As you can see, there's a lot more in the frame and it's just a lot better for vlogging really. But then again, you're not really going to use the GH6 for vlogging. It's not intended for vlogging. It's not a vlogging camera. So it's up to you on that one. Now, I'm not much of a slow motion guy these days, but the GH6 does have plenty of options when it comes to slow-mo. I didn't test them fully, but they looked great from what I could see. And even the 200 frames per second at 1080 looked really good. I'd use it. It's there. If you've got it, if you ever need it, you can use it and it'll look good. The grip feels really nice. It's a little bit heavier than the S5, it's slightly bigger. The menu systems are all the same. It's just obviously got a lot more options within the menu. And obviously because it is a little bit bigger, you've got more function buttons around the camera, which I really like. For example, you've got this audio information button, so you can toggle on or off the audio metering display on your monitor, which is really handy. I love that feature because I like to look at my audio levels to see if I'm at the right place, but that can take up a little bit of extra room on your little display. We've got a few more tally light options, and I like the fact that you can either dim those tally lights or turn them on or off completely, because I don't really like the ones on the front if I'm filming something in the dark, because it can sometimes flash or create a reflection depending on what you're filming. So, would I buy one of these cameras? Yes, I would. I'd love to. In fact, if I hadn't have just bought a second S5, then I'd have probably gone for one of these. The only thing is, like, if you already own an S5 and you want a second camera, it's going to be a little bit tricky to colour match. Even though they are the same brand, there is a different look about it, and they are different colours. I mean, obviously I was setting my white balance each time. Yeah, just think about that if you're going for a second camera. But if you're just going for the one, or if you've got a GH5 for example, I'd recommend getting one of these cameras. I'm thinking about it, you know, one day I think I'm going to get one of these because I've fallen in love with the Image. It's so nice. Let me know what you think to this camera in the comments below, or if you've got any questions. If you want to see a comparison video between the S5 and the GH6, that's coming up very soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified. In the meantime, you can check this video out here, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good week.